I did say that there was going to be a few people that might have questions, so I did add that on. I will ask the questions. We'll do it as random, and we'll get a few questions in if we can. Thank you. So my name is Nina. I've been with Mott Park Neighborhood Association since 2009. I am the president currently. So I really out. This is a thing for all of us. A lot of people haven't been able to talk to a lot of the candidates, so I thought this would be a big thing for us to do for not only our residents, but I guess the whole city too. So you're welcome. You're welcome. So I guess we'll start since Mr. Neely has stepped out with, yes, ma'am.
Yes, can I ask that you remind everyone to speak loud enough with the fans going, and even just with you talking, it's kind of low?
Yeah, usually this is a lot louder. I don't know if he adjusted the volume. Usually it's like squeaking too, so. But we'll have Mr. Eason come up and talk. I gave them, 5 to 7 minutes should be a good time. And then I can, once they both, since the only two that have come is Mr. Eason and Mr. Representative Neely, then we'll ask a few questions after that since the other two didn't show up. So Mr. Eason, without further ado. You got that?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Do you want to hold it? You want me to just put it up here? Okay. I think Arthur just made it go up, so.
Thank you.
Watch the board there.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? You'll have to forgive me. I had knee replacement surgery, and it's been a painful experience. Been in PT for around about 5 weeks, and I'm hoping to be able to walk like normal within the next 3 months. So for those of you who've ever had knee replacement surgery, I'm sure you can understand what that means. But beside that, let me talk a little bit about Gregory Eason. I'm from Flint, Michigan. I've lived here in Flint, Michigan for a better part of 40 years. Of the 40 years that I've been here, 30 years of my life have been spent in public service. During the course of that 30-year period, I've actually been a president and CEO of roughly around about 5 to 6 different medium to size large organizations. I ran one of the largest workforces, the 4th largest in the state of Michigan at the time, for Genesee, Shiawassee, and Lapeer County. I've managed over $700 million over the course of my 30 years of federal, state, local, and philanthropic funds. I was city administrator for the city of Flint for a couple of years. And so I have a broad-based experience where I've worked in government, I've worked for nonprofits, I've worked as a consultant working for nonprofits, helping them to build capacity in their organizations. My vision for Flint, Michigan. Over the course of the next 4 years, if I'm given an opportunity to become mayor, my focus will be to unify the city and to bridge the racial divide through positive relationship building, to safeguard the taxpayers' dollars, to work cooperatively with Flint City Council to ensure that we work on shared goals and objectives in a very harmonious way and get the job done. I want to make sure that we adhere to the Flint City Charter and all of its ordinances, and that we reinstate the master plan and be able to implement the master plan for based on a new set of goals and objectives. I want to initiate a forensic audit, because I think we're at a point right now where we need to know the truth about where we stand in terms of our finances with each one of the funds. The purpose of the forensic audit is not to point fingers, it's to be able to give the community a baseline so that everybody knows where we are, to really be clear about the challenges that we're going to be faced with, because the fact of the matter is, it's going to take more than just one person to move the city forward. For any mayor to tell you that they're going to move this community by themselves, then they're not being truthful for you. Because in order for you to be able to move a community forward, you have to move it from the ground up. That is, you must be able to establish relationships with the community, make sure that you have built trust with the community, make sure you be clear about what needs to be done in the community, make sure that together you put together plans to move forward, and make sure that you maintain transparency so that everybody's clear about what's been done, what has not been done, but needs to be done. I think it is important that we get to the bottom line of this water crisis. I'm not convinced right now that we've gotten to the source of this water crisis. And so I'm committed as the mayor doing a couple of things. Bringing the CDC in along with some other health organizations so that we can get to the bottom of where we stand with this water crisis, because I think a whole lot of noise is being made, which I'm not saying it's not good, about what they think is going on. I think the root source of the Flint water crisis precedes the emergency manager, precedes switching over to the Flint River. I think Flint River is part of the problem, but I think that we need to get to the root cause. I think also one of the things that I will do is bring to bear, because I worked for about 5 years as a vice president of a medical laboratory. So I understand how to communicate with people in the healthcare industry. And I think we can bring to bear a host of different organizations from across this country to sit down at a round table to help us to figure out how they can help us bring resources and build capacity in our ability to be able to solve our problem with the Flint water crisis. I think it is important that as mayor, we should have at least 1 to 2 water service stations in each one of the wards. It doesn't make any sense for people to stand in long lines to get water. It doesn't make any sense, quite frankly, that we run out of water. So I'm committed to find the resources that we can purchase through a contract with a national organization to purchase water over a period of 2 years, that we establish a warehouse that will be local, that will then those waters and water filters to those water service centers, so that people will have 9 to either 18 locations that they can get access to water, or they can gain access to water filters. I think it's also important that in addition to doing that as mayor, I'm committed to identifying a host of different philanthropic sources that we can use that will bring some resources to the city of Flint. I'm convinced that through my relationships with foundations that we can probably garner somewhere around about 300 to 300 million additional dollars from the different 300 to 400 foundations in the state of Michigan. I'm convinced that we can do that. I know that we can. I'm committed that the number one, the $200 million that's sitting at the state level, to establishing a plan and to submit it to the state to ensure that we will spend the money accordingly, and to spend the money and to make sure we bring it here to the city of Flint. And not only to see that as just being water money, but I think it's an opportunity for us to establish economic development. I'm committed, and I want to say this right up front, I'm committed to creating 2,500 new jobs in the city of Flint over a period of 4 years. I'm committed to doing that. In fact, I will do that. I'm committed, and I will bring at least 25 new national and international businesses to the city of Flint in a way of diversifying our business base. I'm committed to doing that. I will do these things. I'm committed to reinstituting a summer youth program where we can place at least between 1,000 to 1,500 kids in the summer youth jobs over a period of 4 years. I'm committed to doing that. I will do that. I'm committed to establishing a regional economic summit consisting of businesses that are national, local, regional, national, and international, and bringing them to Flint so that we could talk about potential business opportunities for the city of Flint. I'm committed to establishing a small business development plan. You see, the city has, between the Section 108 fund and between the funds that come out of the Flint Economic Development Corporation, there's no reason why we should not establish a small development plan to try to empower local businesses that are here, to try to provide them with resources to help and support them, because they need that help. We should have been doing it a long time ago. I'm committed to doing that. I'm committed to establishing a small business advisory council who will work directly with me to talk about what are the needs in the small business development community, how do we grow the small business development community, how do we diversify the small business development community as part of my economic development plan to creating jobs. I am committed, and I will hire a full-time person who will be focused on helping me to develop a health and water crisis and other different problems that are facing the community. I will reinstitute Smith Village. I will make sure that we create at least 50 to 60 new homes of affordable housing. I will do that if you consider me being your mayor of the city of Flint. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Eason. And now Mr. Neely.
Good evening. I want to thank all of you guys for coming out here and sharing a little bit of time with us today. I want to thank Mr. Eason for coming out. And you know there's two other candidates on the ballot that you will be considering on August 6th. And so I want to thank Mr. Eason for coming out to share his idea and his vision for the city of Flint, as well as all of you for taking time to come out. I'm Sheldon Neely. I'm currently your state representative, formerly your city council person that represented the Great Sixth Ward of the city of Flint. So we know each other, and we know each other well. Reintroducing myself to you again as a candidate for mayor, because you've seen me in this capacity maybe 10 years ago, but you haven't seen me in that capacity for a while now. But born and raised in the city of Flint here, with a great extended family unit that, you know, I have a wife, 2 daughters, a mother, and extended family members, and we have a really, really good time living here in the city of Flint. And I'm a broadcast engineer by profession. I chose to retire after my second term in the State House. I chose to do that because I wanted to really focus in on the things. I just seen my wife come in here, so I cannot do nothing without recognizing her. Just turn around and acknowledge her so she can say I did it. But one of the reasons that I decided to run for state representative, because I was very content as your city council person. You guys were a fantastic district to represent, the most diverse district in the city of Flint, the most racially and economically diverse district, and we accomplished a lot of good things together. You know, when we changed the name of 3rd Avenue to University Avenue, we got rid of some blight in our community. We did a lot of good things here, you know, the Kettering Gateway, the boulevards. We did some demolition with the Medical Arts Building together, working together, fighting together, and staying together. Even our members of our K-9 loving community, one of the first ordinances, well, one of the most duplicated ordinances inside the state of Michigan is the one I wrote about dogs and owners. And that came about because of a dog attack in Mott Park, but we wanted to make sure that we had a great balance for canines and good owners, to make sure we got rid of the bad owners owning canines. And so that came out of the Mott Park area, and that's the most duplicated ordinance inside the state of Michigan. One of the things that I'm very proud of is the ordinances that I've provided for the city of Flint. And I produced more quality of life ordinances than any city council person in Flint's history. And I did so because I was able to work together with my colleagues, people of like thinking, trying to improve the quality of life for residents. And when we think about residential, recreation, economics, education, and safety, those are the 5 points of light. And those issues are not black, white, rich, or poor. We all live in a community that we want to enjoy living in, a community that we can come home and feel safe living in our homes, going back and forth to the grocery store, the cleaners, or wherever you may choose to do, take your children to the parks. And we have enhanced the quality of life for residents in the city of Flint, and not Michigan. Today was to pull some of the legislation that I have done during a tenure in the state of Michigan. I have been directly responsible in the passing of 27 legislative acts in the state of Michigan. One of the ones we've done, the only one that talks about water quality in the state of Michigan, is the law that I wrote. One that we talk about is the victims of domestic violence and helping those individuals get through that traumatic time, I wrote. Another one that last one we just did was one to help the Ferris wheel building downtown. The city of Flint made an error that was going to cost this business about $750,000. And so I did that to improve the quality of life for residents inside the city of Flint and also the state of Michigan. I'm doing very well in Lansing. I'm in leadership. I'm on the most powerful committee there in Lansing. And someone asked, why would I come back to the city of Flint? I drive back and forth every day. I lay my head in Flint. My mother's here. My wife and my children are here. My neighbors and my friends, all of you are here. And the reason I decided to run for this job of watching what is going on through this particular water crisis and other services not being provided for residents, I decided to come back. How could I not come back? Being blessed with talent, skills, determination, and vision, how could I not come back to this community? Many are distracted about what goes on and what's happening inside the city of Flint. It's not about vengeance, it's about vision. And who has the vision, who can deliver the goods. Anybody can stand before you and tell you great things. That's in the realm of politics. We see it on the national level, state level, local, municipal, county level. But who can deliver for you? When I talk about working with each other to get to a goal, to improve the quality of life for you, the residents, that's something we've done. And that's something that we enjoy doing. When I talk about working across the aisle, Democrat, Republican, we can get it done. When I talk about getting 4 other votes on city council beyond my own, we got it done. What the city of Flint needs now, we need to move through this crisis. We have other issues facing us as well. We need a person that can get us to the other side. I can do that. I've been your champion for a very long time. I want to continue to be your champion in the mayor's office. We have a plan to restore education and safety in our community. And you know that because we have done that here in the Mont Park area for a very long time. And so I don't want to keep rambling on because, do we have a Q&A portion?
Yeah, I've got a few questions that people.
Okay, so I'm going to relinquish the amount of time so you guys can ask the questions that's most germane in your life to improve the quality of life for you and your neighbors and your friends and your family, so you can make a good determination on what to do on August 6th and then again in November. Thank you.
Okay, so what I will do is I've got a few questions here and I will, I'm short, so excuse me. I'll ask the question and then I'll give you guys about 2 minutes to answer each question individually. Does that sound like a plan? Okie dokie. All right, the first question is, as a result of you becoming mayor, what tangible achievement will Flint citizens realize at the end of your 3-year term? Mr. Eason, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I can bring it to him.
I want to get
Are you sure?
good exercise.
Okay.
If I'm granted the opportunity to be mayor, I'm going to learn how to
That's
stand.
right. If it gets too hard on the knee, I can walk, so.
That's okay.
Yeah.
If you notice, one of the things I've made a point of doing is telling you what I'm going to do. For too long, we've had people that are in elected positions that at the end of the day, they make promises that they can't deliver because they don't have the skill, they don't have the ability, nor do they have the demonstrated track record. So when I say to you, and I say to you without question, that I will bring 2,500 new jobs to the city of Flint during the course of the 4 years or 3 years. I'm committed to that. I'm committed to making sure that we employ anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 young people in the summer youth programs. I'm committed to that. I'm committed to bringing at least 25 to 30 new businesses that are national and international to the city of Flint. I'm committed to that. I'm committed to making sure that we resolve the issue of the water crisis. I'm committed to that. I'm committed to make sure that our roads that need to be repaired, that our lawns that need to be repaired, and our copper lines that need to be repaired, I will get them done. I'm committed to that. I'm committed to getting them done within the 3-year period that I'll be mayor. I'm committed to making sure that we adhere to the new Flint City Charter, all of its ordinances. I'm committed to making sure that based upon some of the new economic development plans that I want to implement, and public safety plans I want to implement, and health initiatives, that we recreate or reimagine a new Flint master plan. I'm committed to doing that. You see, the time has come that you have to really stand on solid ground. I can say these things to you not because I'm just guessing. It's because I've done that. People told me that I couldn't do the Broom Center. I took $25,000, went and wrote a $5.5 million proposal and created the Broom Center. People say that I couldn't bring the Job Corps Center. I'm the one who started the Job Corps Center. Politicians jumped on board when they heard from U.S. Representative Dale Kiley that Greg Eason is in Washington, D.C., and the U.S. Department of Labor is going to give him $20.5 million to do the Flint Job Corps Center. I'm committed to doing it. When I did the Smith Village was a project, and I'm going to shut my mouth up in a minute, but Smith Village was a project. The reason why we really moved forward to Smith Village was because the city had a $2 million disallowance that we had to pay back to the federal government. What I was able to do is take NSP $1, NSP $2, and create Smith Village and put people in affordable housing that it was cheaper for them to buy a house than it would be for them to rent. You see, I've done these things before, and I've done them without question. So the things that I'm talking about doing, I'm willing to stand on a solid ground and tell you, I will do these things, and I want you to hold me accountable.
Thank you.
Yes, Anita, correct me if I'm mistaken. The question is what the difference would be at the end of the 3-year term.
As a result of you becoming mayor, what tangible achievement will Flint citizens realize at the end of your 3-year term?
Right. At the end of a 3-year term, because the city of Flint currently right now, and this is something that they won't truly tell you, that the city of Flint is still in areas in many different ways. We have a public safety issue. We have a quality of life issue as it relates to water. We have a dysfunctional park and rec system. The city hall has been hollowed out. You have people with no capacity to perform the services that's necessary to provide you with a better quality of life. You're anemic in human resourcing, legal department, finance department. These are people who are supposed to be professionals to help guide our city and perform a function for you to increase the quality of life. At the end of my 3-year term, I will build back up the capacity necessary for the city of Flint to move forward independently without the help of all other entities, federal and state, paying taxes and getting exactly what we pay for. You know, we have a anemic system for our public safety, fire and police. We will build a system to where we have a perpetual system on an inclining level to provide safety for residents inside the city of Flint and to finance that. Parks and Rec, you pay 3 times for parks and recs right now, but if you go out there and look at most parks across the city of Flint, you see devastation in those areas. Mott Park, you guys do a fantastic job of keeping up your park system so your kids can have a place to play in. At the end of my 3 years, you will have a better quality of life in this community. I will build that capacity, build safety, repair the water infrastructure. We will repair the roads as well. And so we will have that where the city can move forward without being dependent or recipient of somebody else's generosity. We will be self-sustaining with good leadership, and I can provide that good leadership for you.
Sheldon, I'll have you start the next one. Okay, the next question is, what are you going to do about the illegal bond deal we made for the KWA and the added increased charges it puts on our water bills? Our water is one of the most expensive in the U.S. and it's still not safe to drink without a filter.
Two-part question, and those are very good questions. Now, the first, what you would do with the illegal bond, we would have to go through a process to have it adjudicated where we could actually file a lawsuit against the state of Michigan, probably in a federal court system, and then we have to win that judgment. We also have what you call a Headley Act, where the Headley Act says that the state government cannot force or mandate any a cost upon local residents or a local community that they could not afford. And so that is 2 ways. It would have to go through a court system to be adjudicated and provide a judgment inside the city of Flint, for the city of Flint, to reduce our bond obligation or to make the state of Michigan pay in total that bond debt that the city of Flint has taken on. 2, when we talk about the highest water rates in the country for water, people really believe and know that it cannot drink without filters. Right now, what you have a system that's hemorrhaging water to the percentage of maybe 40% to 45% into the ground. We have to pay our providers, which is a GLEWA system now, for all the water that is delivered into our city. So when you look at, what water is delivered to us, you have to kind of brush off 30 to 40 to 45% of that cost off the table, because you cannot just pay for what you use. You have to pay for what you order and what's delivered to you. And so we have an infrastructure that's needs repair. Right now, there's been probably better than $750 million delivered to the city of Flint cash, probably another $250 million delivered in other actual resources. But as we go on to repair our infrastructure, our service lines, we need to replace our mains and our main infrastructure as well, to also invest in all of that so we can stop the leakage to the point to where we can have a cost savings on the initial level. Also, penalties up on the poor. This is one of the ordinances I was working on before I got elected to the state. If you notice that if in the city of Flint, if your water is shut off, you are charged a $75 charge. When your water, there's another $75 charge or a $100 charge. And I call that a penalty up on the poor. Usually when people cannot pay their water bill, it's because they don't have the money. And so the city of Flint has a system where they charge you additional dollars for cutting off your water or cutting on your water. I would eliminate that. No penalty for being poor in this community. Also, you guys know I produced the water rate estimator card that I passed out maybe 20,000 cards throughout the city, and especially to residents in the city of Flint. You have a dysfunctional meter system. The card allowed you to be able to know how to go down to read your meter to make sure that you are getting an accurate charge for the water that you use. The system that's previously mostly and still intact is a system that was for a company that went bankrupt. And what they have is a battery in that system. And the battery is no longer functioning. The battery only had maybe a 10-year lifespan. And it's in an enclosed system, so you cannot replace the battery. And so it's a transmitter in that water system, and then the receiver. But the receivers was no longer receiving transmissions from your water meter, so they could not charge you correctly. So what the city of Flint did was continuously charge you an estimate, not for actual use. New systems to be able to charge you correctly. Also, we will start a standard of using. I'm sorry. Okay, that's it. I'll let Greg answer.
If anybody knows Sheldon, he'll go on and on and on. He is our information king.
First of all, let me state for the record, I was against Kara Gandhi. Publicly, I was against Kara Gandhi. I stated it several times in city council meetings because I didn't think that Kara Gandhi was a good thing for us. I thought something was wrong when in the initial proposal of Kara Gandhi, it was around about $800 million is what they had proposed, of which 45% of that $800 million was going to be imposed on you as taxpayers. So I was against it. I didn't think we should have been for it. I stood against it. I understood part of the reason why the emergency manager fired me, because I said to the emergency manager, I'm against Kara Gandhi. Kara Gandhi is not a good thing for the city of Flint. I also have a real problem with GLEWA. We negotiated a contract with GLEWA was smoking dope, was smoking marijuana. It just doesn't make any sense when you look at the terms of that contract. It's crazy. And so if I was the mayor, let me tell you the things I would do. Number one, I would file a major lawsuit against the state of Michigan, because I think the state of Michigan is partly responsible for us being in this mess. And we have not been aggressive enough at going at the state of Michigan to hold them accountable, because we got ourselves caught in this mess, not because we should have been in receivership. We shouldn't have been. We only at the time had we only had an $8.5 million deficit. We asked for $20 million over a period of 30 years, and the governor wouldn't give it to us because there were certain people that live in Flint, Michigan. Well, let me put them to go a different way. There are certain people that live on Lake Michigan. I'm sorry. There are certain people that live on Lake Fenton who make decisions for the city of Flint, who cut a deal with the governor to bring an emergency manager in here. It's wrong. We should have never been in this mess. So I'm telling you, I'll file a major lawsuit against the state. I do agree with State Representative Neely that we do have some infrastructure problems. That 72-inch pipe, which brings in the water from Detroit to here, has been a problem for the last, should have been repaired a long time ago. Part of the reason why we couldn't repair it is because over many years, the last 20 or 30 years, that water fund has been abused by elected officials. It was used as a slush fund for doing everything else other than what it was supposed to. When we went, when Mayor Dane Walling came on board, we inherited a $13.9 million lawsuit that we had to honor. It was either one of two things: we paid a lawsuit, or we was going to have to impose that on the citizens. So that drew down the water fund was diminished. We had some serious managerial problems. Now, here's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that we need to repair that 72-inch pipe. It doesn't make any sense for them to have $200 million sitting there at Lansing, and we got a 72-inch pipe that we're losing anywhere, as the state representative said, between 30 to 40% leakage. That's wrong. I do agree with the state representative that, number one, we've had this problem with the water meters for about the last 30 years because elected officials made a decision to give a contract to a company that went out of business right after they give them the contract. So we have a new sets of technology that I would deploy in order to reduce your water rates. Here's what I will say to you in cut. I'm shut my mouth. I'm going to reduce your water rates. It may take me 3 years to do it. I will reduce your water rates. I will put in place an infrastructure of making sure that we repair a lot of the problems we have, because in some cases we're going to have to shut off some portions of Flint where we got infrastructure that we shouldn't even be giving water and any kind of services to anyway. Sorry.
You stay up and then I'll head back to the other one. Maybe make it a little bit easier on you up and down here.
No problem.
All right. So the next question is, what do you think of the new charter, and if and when elected, will you seek re-election?
I think it's a wonderful thing that we have a new Flint City Charter. The problem I'm concerned with is that we don't honor it. What was the point in asking citizens to come at the table to help us to create what we thought was a new city charter based upon a new set of challenges, and then we don't honor it? I think it is, quite frankly, it's a shame that, quite frankly, we have that Flint City Charter and it's not being honored. It's a shame that, quite frankly, we have a city council who's not strong enough to stand up against a mayor to say, you know, what you're doing is wrong. It's a shame. So I support the new Flint City Charter. I will honor it. Quite frankly, I think it's a good thing that we establish a point whereby you don't have this constant competition between who's going to become mayor, because many of your city councilmen plan around becoming mayor instead of them being a good city council because of the straddle. I will honor that. I will honor all of the terms of the Flint City Charter.
I think it was a two-part question again, Nina.
Yes, it was. What do you think of the new charter, and if and when elected, will you seek re-election?
Yep, the new charter's been put in place, and we're going into about 2 years since you guys actually have taken a vote to install the new charter for the city of Flint. It's not a perfect charter, but it's better than the old charter. This charter has more teeth to make sure that governmental officials actually operate and behave as you give them power to do so. Any elected official, whether it be on a state level, federal level, or municipal level, they have to honor the Constitution of that community. You, the voters, give them the ability to do what they do. And if they operate outside of that charter, they're not operating for you. If they're not fulfilling all the obligations of that charter, they're not operating for you. So it becomes a question of what are you paying for. And so, yes, I support the new charter. I will activate the new charter, and we will acquiesce to the will of the people. Now, will I run for another term? I told you before, I'm retired from a job, right? After 27 years, you know, and most of my life, I worked 2 jobs. As a counselor for the Flint Community Schools, as a counselor for a runaway shelter, then as a city councilman, My wife is always talking about this big house with a wraparound porch, right? And she said she wanted it to be yellow, right? And so I have to consult with my family whether I would seek another term, because the job in Lansing, I had hair, right? Right? And so
Barely.
but I had a little bit. I was holding on to it. The job will not be easy, and sometimes you have to get out of the way for fresh ideas, to have momentum of youth to guide us. So I'm here only at this time, running for this office because it's a calling, and I have the skill set to deliver what I'm saying I can do for you. I'm doing well in Lansing. I was tapped on the shoulder for the lieutenant governor. Some of you guys know that, some of you guys don't. I was the first runner-up. I didn't really want that because my heart is here. My family's here. And I'm independently middle class, right? So I'm not seeking a lot of checks or wealth. My only issue is people, quality of life, and doing the very best that I can under the watchful eye of God. Thank you.
All right, so the next question is, where do you stand on putting liens on people's homes for outstanding water bills, water affordability?
Sometimes when I hesitate on up, I'm trying to figure out a proper word to say. I say something that's acceptable. When I hear about people having water liens placed on their homes, knowing that there's a 72-inch pipeline where you got a 30 to 40% leakage, knowing that the water meters don't work, how can you do that in good conscience? How can you do that? That's wrong. I would not place liens on people's homes. That's crazy. I think, quite frankly, you can't have it help you to move this community forward, and then you turn around and do something to them like that. In some cases, you'll be taking almost half of Flint and putting liens on wherever they live. We have one of the highest poverty rates per capita than any other place in this country. You're talking about almost half of Flint being below the poverty rate. So what are you going to do? You're going to shut down half of your city and water liens? Or are you going to try to figure out ways in which you can eat and chew bubble gum at the same time? That is, we need to figure out ways we can repair the water lines. We need to figure out ways we can replace the meters. We need to figure out ways in which we can do a number of the different kind of things. And at the same time, figure out how we're going to not put people in positions where they cannot afford to live in Flint. Let me just close by saying this. One of my greatest fears about some of this is one word. It's called gentrification. That scares the hell out of me. That scares me because what that means is people who love this community, but you'll put them in a position where they can no longer afford to live in this community, and you'll move them out. That's wrong. I'm not going to do that. There's got to be a way, and I'll figure out a way to help citizens of Flint maintain their dignity. I'll figure out a way in which they can help me come up with a way they can come up with a reasonable payment plan. I'll hold them to that payment plan, and I'll hire somebody to help me to try to manage that process. Thank you.
Well, the short answer to that particular question about would I or would I not support water liens, the answer is I would diametrically oppose anyone losing their homes for a utility bill. You know, I talked about the penalties up on the poor. You know, to be in this position, to be a city council person, to be a state representative, and to receive those phone calls from a 90-year-old widow that says that I received a notice in the mail that I'm going to lose my home, which my deceased husband has left me because I cannot afford to keep up and keep pace with the water bill. And when I asked the widow, you know, how much is your water bill? And then they say they charge me for 6 units or 6 cons of water. And when a person living in a home by themselves, it's almost impossible for them to use that much water. That's why I developed a water rate estimator card. But there's laws already currently on the books, and we've used it and implemented them before. Chris Del Moroni's here, and he sits on the board about taxes. And he knows that the application can be filed right now. And it used to be called a poverty tax exemption, and I guided people to that particular application so they can get a reduced water bill, reduced taxes, so they can be on a fixed income and then reduce their costs so they can afford to keep their homes. But we have to use every tool that's available to us now and in the future, and to create and build new tools to make sure that no one has to undergo a notice in the mail saying that they're going to lose their home. One of the things I've done as a state representative, when the water crisis first hit, I had a conversation with Deb, our treasurer, that says no longer can you start to foreclose on people's homes as it relates to non-payment of a water bill because people were paying their water bill. We have issues with people not paying their water bills that can afford to pay their water bills. It's an issue that we have to share the burden to maintain the system. And we have ways that we can do that. Repair the infrastructure, water meters, and other necessary tools, but also for the poor, for the least amongst us, we have to use the tools that's currently already on the books. Poverty tax exemption. And I agree with Mr. Eason, and I have a lot of respect for his courage and the things that he says, because the Gleewood deal is an awful, awful deal. If the city of Flint forfeits one payment to that entity, they can come over and take over the whole system. The whole system. We have a lot of enemies at the door, and what you need is a strong, tenacious, intellectual, forward-thinking person to fight them back. And that's Sheldon Neely. Thank you.
Okay, this question is, Flint's public school children are woefully unprepared for grade level achievements. How can you, as the mayor, help with that?
Our mayor is very limited in terms of what they can do in terms of the school system. I just want to be very candid with you and upfront. There's a reason why they have a school board. But what I do think a mayor can do is when a mayor has a struggling school system, they should attend all of the school board meetings. They should be there to listen to the challenges, to see how they can solicit and provide their political support, how they can provide leverage in terms of political support at the federal and state levels. I will not stand in the way of a school board who's been granted authority to manage the day-to-day of the school. What I will do is make myself available, make myself accessible, to try to support them as much as I can. I do have some concerns that the rate we're going to lose our public school system. I have some concerns about that. I question some of the intentions on those who are creating new initiatives, because what it is further doing is further deteriorating our public school systems. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I won't stand for that. That's wrong. I come out of public school system. I graduated valedictorian. I can talk about a whole lot of things I've done, but I come from that system. And that system is done well by me, and it's done well by a whole lot of people. We can't abandon our public school system. We have to provide as much support as they can, and as mayor, I won't try to tell the school board what to do, but sometimes I'll challenge the school board, and then other times I'll try to figure out how I can provide support to them.
The system of government in the state of Michigan, just sometimes you have cross-pollination. Your municipal government, you have council, you have administration, you have county, you have school boards, all ordained by what they call the Home Rule Act, right? So my talent and one of my beliefs, my core beliefs is partnerships, unity building, and sitting at the table with all to try to increase the quality of life for residents. If you do not know, you cannot do. So we have a system of a public government under the Home Rule Act where kids in certain geographic areas are losing, right? In the state of Michigan, the third grade reading mandate passed while I was there in my first term. It was a big battle between the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats were severely outnumbered, and the Republicans forced this third grade reading mandate into place, saying that kids, if they're not proficient in third grade reading, they will be retained there. Never mind what the teacher says, the parent says, the building principal says, the superintendent says, or the school board says. Severely impacted, or low to moderate income areas are going to be severely impacted by what they had just passed in Lansing. And even in the city of Flint, kids that digested lead, that may have permanent brain damage, the trajectory of their lives forever impacted. So what you do is you don't stand there, you move through it. So I opened up the second library in the city of Flint. You have the Flint Public Library, that's one. The second library was opened 3 years ago, which is the virtual library, the literacy lab at the Flint Development Center. In order to give kids the opportunity to be educated outside the traditional room of a classroom, where you have an educational desert, when you have Durrell Ryder on the southern portion, and then you have Brownell Elementary on the northern portion. You have probably 5 square miles where you have no institution of higher learning or where kids can get learning. But now you do. You have the virtual library there that provides free Wi-Fi in that area where you have poverty-stricken individuals so they can get that extra opportunity for learning. We now have the Promise Zone inside the city of Flint, getting kids to that promise. When they graduate from high school, public, charter, or private, if they live in the city of Flint, they get to go to college for free. And that's how the cage of poverty, the cage of not knowing, executing on what we can be instead of complaining what we cannot be. Through unification, working together with our partners, philanthropic, business, public, and private entities to execute upon a better future for our families. And that's what we've done, but working together with the school board, sitting at those tables, having that dialogue with that superintendent, saying we need to move on with this type of plan to educate our children. Thank you.
Okay, the last question is going to be from myself. So the biggest concern for a lot of Flint residents and for any businesses coming in is the safety of where we live. What are you going to do if you are elected president to make that different and a significant change within the 3 years that you are there?
You said president.
Did I say president?
That's why I hesitated.
It's the heat. I swear. Hey, neither one of you be better than me.
One of the greatest challenges that we're going to have over the course of the next 4 to 10 years is going to be how do we increase the number of police officers. Let's talk about being realistic. I think sometimes what happens is people give you pipe dreams. They tell you things that they want you to hear, and they're not realistic. One of the things I said to emergency manager, which gets back to this point, is that we can't cut our way out of this crisis. That the reason why Flint got into this mess we did is because we lost 80,000 jobs that were GM jobs. So we really have lost a lot in terms of tax revenues, property tax revenues, income tax revenues, business tax revenues. The only way that you're going to be able to build that up is you've got to increase economic development. You got to increase your tax base, and the only way that you're going to be able to hire more officers at a substantial level is that you're going to have the tax revenues to be able to do it, because that cost comes out of the general fund. If you're not careful and you overcommit yourself, you could end up in a deficit. But let's talk about some solutions. I think that the city of Flint still has the potential of creating proactive partnerships between Flint Police, County Police, State Police, the FBI. I think we have an excellent opportunity to be able to talk about how do we empower neighborhood associations, create new neighborhood associations and block clubs. Let me give you an example. I just so happen to live in the college cultural area. The area I live in, we pay a fee to a security company who comes by and they do surveillance around our community. Now that doesn't stop crime, but it sure deter crime. Let's talk about other communities that are less fortunate than Flint. So how do you some of the same services? The city gets anywhere between $8 to $10 million of CDBG block grant money. Of that CDBG block grant money, 15% of that money can be used for community service. Does everybody understand that? Let me repeat that. The city gets anywhere between $8 to $10 million of CDBG block grant money. They've been getting that for the last 50 years, at least 40 years. Federal rules and regulations say you can take 15% of that, apply that to community service. Question: why couldn't a mayor put out for bid opportunities where communities can bid for services that they think are needed in their communities? Beautification services, security services. There's a host of other different services that fall within the guidelines of community block grant. Now, mind you, I want to make sure I say, because somebody asked me this question and say, well, Greg, are you talking about you're going to hire police out of CDBG block grant? I said, no, you cannot do that. But what you can do is you can be creative and innovative and talk about what kind of a community service that you can provide. And if public safety, or shall I say security services, provide safety to a particular neighborhood, you can do that. Now, I'm not talking about the $1.2 to $1.3 million would be enough, but you can leverage that with other philanthropic money to increase the pot. So there's some opportunities where you can do some things. Now, the goal is, over a period of 3 years, to be in a position where you've increased economic development and you can create some opportunities to hire more police officers. But it'll be a while before you can hire the number that you really need.
We're concerned about the safety. What are you going to do in your 3 years to change that if you are voted for mayor?
Now, safety is very important. It's one of the most critical pieces to municipal life. Right? Police officers are here to make organization, so it alleviates chaos in your community, to alleviate crime or reduce crime. You can't have economic development, a good quality of life in your residential home if you don't feel safe. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have a revenue stream that will support on an inclining level public safety, police and fire, to make sure that those officers have a good level of morale. As Mr. Houston said, he talked about the partnerships with the other law enforcement agencies that's in our area. We have the county sheriff's department, we have the Michigan State police officers, as well as we have university police officers. And then we have all of you, right? We have all of you. And so remember about 8 years ago when I talked about the crime watch and using electronic surveillance, and over there off of Nolan Drive, we put up these new crime watch signs, and we put up you will be under surveillance. And so crime doesn't really dissipate, it just kind of travels and moves about. But we have to be proactive in our thinking, making sure police officers are there, but also we have to participate in the process of reducing crime in our communities. And so when we look at how do we do it, all the other things in that's necessary for us to have a better quality of life. Partnerships, working together and providing a revenue stream that will not be molested by political entities, to make sure that we will have that perpetual revenue stream to support public safety. Now, you guys heard me maybe 3 weeks ago with the uptick in shootings in the side of our city. more than 18 people shot in a 30-day period. And so when I call for the municipal government to step up the level of policing, come up with a plan, a proactive, unified plan, working with other entities, they push back. What do they say? Crime is down, right? Not to the 18 people that got shot, not to the 7 people that died, right? We know that in the summertime, grass is gonna grow. In the wintertime, snow is gonna fall. So we have to be proactive as a community and law enforcement in partnering, making sure our streets are safer. And so what we've done on the state level is place 44 MSP officers inside the city of Flint with a secure partnership initiative, making sure that for where the police department doesn't have coverage, that we can fill it with other entities. The clearance rate currently, right now in the city of Flint, is awful. That means if a person does a crime here to you now and runs out of this room, they may never get caught because the detective bureau is very anemic. We have to, or your dog will catch them. That's a good one. We all need one of those dogs, right? But we have to perform better detective training and put more people there to resolve crime, because if a criminal does a crime to you and gets away, he's gonna do a crime to you tomorrow. And so we have to catch the criminal where they are, and it's gonna take a cooperative effort. Elected leaders and residents to perfect a safer community for us all. Was that the last question? All right. I do want to take time to thank you for sharing time with us today. I want to thank Mr. Eason. I have a lot of respect for this man here. He doesn't believe I do, but we get along okay sometimes, okay. But I do have a lot of respect for you, Greg. I do. I really do. Thank you for sharing this time on this evening. I'm going to go home and sit on the deck with the wife and hope it doesn't rain on us. But thank you guys. God bless you.
Okay, we were going to do a vision meeting, but it is past 8 o'clock now. So I just want to thank everybody for coming again. Thank you, Mr. Eason and Rep. Neely, for coming. I appreciate it because I think we haven't heard a lot from the different candidates, and I think we deserve that if we're going to vote. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you, everybody.
This is the biggest crowd we've had.